Okay, thank you, members of the media. Appreciate your time, and I welcome you all to the NFP headquarters. We've called this press conference because the people of Fiji deserve to know why we have decided not to attend 4 days of the February sitting of Parliament. We invite you and the people of Fiji to look at what is happening there. What is the point? The purpose of Parliament is to serve people and be useful. But the government, using its parliamentary majority and abusing its power, wants to turn it into a theater for headlines and live TV where the opposition are the minor players. And what we are saying is we will not play along. In 2013, Mr. Frank Bainimarama and Mr. Ayaz Sayed Kayum abandoned the military government for their so-called true democracy. But it was democracy by their rules. Democracy by their rules. And that is how, in our view, it has continued so far. For example, they created the first set of parliamentary rules, but when those rules were not working for them, they changed those rules. And I'll give you some examples of that. First, the rules used to say that the Public Accounts Committee must be chaired by an opposition MP. And many of you know, I became chairman of that committee. And when we started asking some difficult questions, and perhaps too many questions, they changed the rules so that a government MP can become the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. When we took to social media to explain to voters government's so-called antics in Parliament, they changed the rules to stop us using social media during parliamentary sessions. That is why you can't say anything while the Parliament is in session. A ridiculous change in the standing orders. And then they changed the rule on the petitions. Originally, a petition could be automatically adopted and referred to the relevant standing committee by the Speaker if the petition met the requirements and that it was in order. But this was becoming embarrassing for them because there were a lot of petitions coming into Parliament. So what they did, they changed the rules so that 40% of parliamentarians must support petitions, knowing full well that after the 2014 elections, the opposition did not have 40% of the votes in Parliament. But unfortunately for them, after the 2018 election, the opposition is now more than 40% of the Parliament. So they can't use that rule to stop the petitions. Now they are looking for other ways. We respect parliamentary procedures and the authority of the Speaker. But in exercising that authority, if we find that the Speaker makes rulings that we believe are wrong, we will respond in a way that we think is appropriate. On Tuesday, 18 February, we decided that if Parliament would not listen to the people of Nasigatoka village, then we would go to Nasigatoka village. And that's what we did. We visited the Nasigatoka village. And we are now here to tell the media, to tell the people of Fiji what is the situation there. how serious the environmental problems are there and can become in the future. In fact, we believe that we served a more useful purpose by not being in Parliament for the last 4 days and actually go out there to look at what was happening and to listen to the people of Nasigatoka. And let me say this. Ever since Parliament was reconstituted under Mr. Ayaz Sayed Kayum and Mr. Frank Bainimarama, we have seen many of these issues. And what we've seen is that they've refused to give independent parliamentary councils which the Speaker can consult. So the Speaker, when ruling on any procedural issues in Parliament, currently must get his legal advice from the Attorney General's office. It's like a referee in a soccer match asking the goalkeeper if the ball is already in the net. The question we want to ask is, why is the government so afraid of giving the Speaker an independent legal advisor? If Parliament sees something wrong in a petition from 900 people, that independent legal advisor could help get that petition. That's what the Parliament is supposed to be, to help the people, to hear their concerns. And I want to tell the people of Fiji, and especially many of our young people who are concerned about the future of this country, about the environment, about climate change. NFP has been around for 56 years. In that time, we have fought for the rights of the ordinary people and those who are paid to save them, especially when those who are paid to save them actually fail to do so. We've done that for the last 56 years. This is not the first time we have protested. And I can tell you, as long as Mr. Frank Bainimarama and Mr. Ayaz Sayed Kayum are in power, it's not going to be their last. We believe that the right of our people to have unrestricted access to parliamentary processes is inalienable. This is the basic tenet of any genuine parliamentary democracy. That is why we have remained out of Parliament for the last 4 days. On Tuesday, after the Speaker denied the petition of the Nasigatoka people, Mr. Rambuka and I wrote to the Speaker jointly. We pointed out the relevant constitutional provisions that compelled Parliament to take heed of the concerns of the people through petitions and the right to participate in parliamentary processes. The Speaker has ruled that the petitioners cannot question the authority of the executive, its decisions on granting of licenses. In this case, an exploration license has been given to a company. The question we ask is, how can this be so? The executive, which is the government, is answerable to the people. And it is answerable to the people through Parliament. Parliament is the supreme oversight independent institution. So the argument that people cannot bring petition to the Parliament because the executive has granted a license, in our view, makes no sense. 900 people, not just 2 or 3 people, 900 people have called on Parliament to carry out a holistic inquiry into the planned mining activities of the company currently holding exploration license. They were not asking immediately for government to change anything. All they were asking is, there are concerns that they want Parliament, through a proper parliamentary committee, to look into and find out what's happening. That's what the petition was all about. And the concerns of the Tikina are legitimate because of what's happening in terms of the dredging of the river mouth, that has, and what has been its impact on the environment, in particular, the food sources that they had before the dredging. To date, we have had no written response from the Speaker. We wrote another letter to the Speaker because we had tried to put two motions in Parliament. The first, of course, was calling for a bipartisan parliamentary committee to inquire into the education reforms and the policies over the years, and in particular since 2014. The second motion was for an inquiry into the public-private partnership that is going to run Lotoka and Ba Hospital. But both the motions were not even presented to the Business Committee by the Speaker's office and the Acting Secretary General's office. So we have not had any response on that letter as well. There are also questions. For example, there's a question on FSC. Government puts in a lot of money, taxpayers' funds into FSC. Now, if the opposition is asking a question on FSC, it's legitimate. It's a taxpayers' money which is going to fund the Fiji Sugar Corporation. Again, that was not allowed in the guise of the fact that it is a statutory organization. Government is the majority shareholder. So all we are saying is that when we decided to walk out on Tuesday, we have followed in writing with the Honorable Speaker. Unfortunately, we've had no response. And we did the right thing to go to the people of Nasigatoka, go and see for ourselves what was happening. And this is not the first time that NFP has talked about this. Honorable Geragere Tambua is going to talk about that a little bit. Honorable Prem Singh, in 2017, raised this issue in Parliament. So once again, I thank you for coming over. I'm now going to invite Honorable Geragere Tambua to say her piece because she also accompanied the team to Nasigatoka. And then I will ask our President, Honorable Pio Tikundundua, to say a few things as well. So thank you, Honorable Geragere Tambua.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Leader. Minaka, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, a joint NFP and SODELPA parliamentary team visited Nasigatoka Tikina on Wednesday, on the 19th of February. And what we saw was just absolute wreckage of the environment on the west bank of the Nasigatoka River and the fishing grounds near Club Masa, or what used to be Club Masa, if you're familiar with the Kulukulu area. And when our team posted pictures and videos from that scene, we learned through the media that the Lands and Mining Minister, Ashnil Sudaka, was claiming that the pictures came from somewhere else. He's the very person who's being paid by the taxpayers to supervise mining activities. He then said we were wrong because the damage was caused by dredging and not mining. And I have to say, we have never said otherwise. We all know that dredging works caused this damage. What the Tikina Nasigatoka is asking through their petition is for Parliament, through the Standing Committee on Natural Resources, to conduct a holistic inquiry into the planned mining of the Nasigatoka river mouth. They want to protect their interests and the well-being of the people of the Tikina and surrounding communities. The Permanent Secretary for Environment, in his brief to the Prime Minister a little bit later, had said that while dredging had caused trees and vegetation to die, they will grow back after a lapse of time, and we just think this is not good enough. And I'd like to, at this time, show you on the screen some of the sickening scenes that awaited us when we got to the Club Masa area of the Kulukulu Beach, which I must add is right next to the National Trust protected sand dunes of Nasigatoka. Thank you. Now, because the petition was rejected, as you all know, we went to go and see ourselves what the truth was. And as you can see, it was pretty unreal. We've never seen anything like this. And I believe Fiji First politicians and ministers who called it fake news should actually take themselves there and go and have a look. Poorly planned and executed dredging of the Nasigatoka River, with the blessings of the now Minister for Environment, Dr. Mahen Reddy, has seen dredge spoils dumped along the riverbanks. What you saw there was me walking through what looked like canyons. That is up to, well, more than up to 3 meters of dredge spoils sprayed onto the riverbank, and more than 10 meters wide, killing natural vegetation and habitats. A renowned and independent environmental scientist has reviewed the EIA at the Nasigatoka for the Nasigatoka exploratory mines before the project was approved. And he found it seriously flawed, and he had informed the Department of Environment, but they ignored his advice. That EIA for the exploration made no mention of the fact that the Nasigatoka estuary is an extremely sensitive nursery area for both marine and freshwater species. For example, all the freshwater prawns of the interior streams and rivers require a few weeks in that brackish water of the tidal portion of the river. After the babies hatch, they have only about 48 hours to reach the mixed water, or they will begin dying. Not a single larval sample or plankton tow was done, and no in-water sampling was done at all. The EIA was based entirely on conjecture and assumptions and no data whatsoever. The Department of Environment at that time was told that the EIA was substandard and, from a scientific standpoint, total rubbish. The Honorable Leader of the NFP, Professor Biman Prasad, already alluded to the February 2017 statement from Honorable Prem Singh at the time, when he moved an end-of-week statement warning on dredging works and the magnetite extraction from the Nasigatoka River mouth. And he asked at that time, 3 years ago almost to this date, whether an EIA assessment had been done and for this document to be made public. The agricultural minister at the time, who is now the leader of government business and a climate champion, dismissed the Honorable Singh's arguments and said that he and others who have concerns should go and look at the EIA at the Environment Ministry office or the Environmental Department. Parliament was told and assured that every 3 months officials would visit the site and that dumping was on approved land. So let me ask, what has happened? Waste sand has been dumped indiscriminately. Trees have been destroyed. There is no sign of vegetation except for the weeds that are now starting to take root. Food sources for the Tikina have been destroyed. It's been 3 years, like I said, since the Honorable Prem Singh sounded the warning bells. Irreparable damage has now been done. Mr. Whitecliffe, Permanent Secretary for Environment, how long is it going to take for fruit and mature trees to come back and fully mature? After a lapse of time or after a lapse of 1 or 2 or 3 generations? Why wasn't the dredging company legally compelled to restore the environment or pay compensation to the Tikina members for its total destruction? You know, the Prime Minister talks about climate change and reducing carbon emissions. He talks about Talanoa, but he will not Talanoa with his own people. And there's a pattern to all of this. Remember the destruction EFL had caused to the rainforest in Wainisaulevu? Nothing has been done. Remember the destruction caused by logging at Ndawasamu, which has destroyed the livelihoods and fishing grounds of the Ndawasamu people? Nothing has been done. Remember the damage caused by gravel extraction in the Upper Navua River? Nothing has been done. And there are numerous other cases. And in all these cases, nothing has been done. So to the government, I say this. Please take heed and listen to the crying hearts of the people. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the press. I will say a few words in continuation to what the Honourable Leader and Honourable Ngarengere Tambua have alluded to earlier. I would say that soon after the walkout by the opposition on Tuesday, the government whip, Alvik Maharaj, made some rather demeaning comments against the NFP and its leader. And he said, and may I quote, "Once again, the National Federation Party, or the NFP, has showed that they bow down in front of the leader of the opposition and follow SODELPA like their tail. Once again, NFP has showed that they do not have their own stand, or rather the two NFP members have more say than their leader himself, and the NFP leader is just the puppet dancing to their tune," unquote. Now this is not only demeaning, but a racial slut, an insult. By accusing the NFP leader of being a puppet and dancing to the tune of the other two NFP members, Mr. Maharaj is saying that since the Honourable Ngarengere Tambua and I are indigenous Fijians, we dictate to the leader, an Indo-Fijian, to support anything done by SODELPA, whose members are indigenous Fijians. Now this is, to me, racism at its worst. And I was a good one, tobo veimbedi, the veindusi wakamata tamata. And this form of racism and racial slurs must be strongly condemned by every reasonably thinking Fijian. But since he's the Fiji First Whip, I know and I don't expect the Honourable Mbaini Marama and Mr. Ayasayed Kayum to say anything or even blink an eyelid, because to them, this is okay, and this is all right. Okay, if someone from the inside, their party, insults an opposition member and their party. And racially insulting an MP is also not racism, I believe, to the Director of Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Commission, who is quick to label opposition MPs of racism for even asking government to release desegregated data. Now let me say this, and I want to make this very clear to the likes of Mr. Alvik Maharaj, his leader, and the members of his party, who condone blatant racism and have indeed preached it during the last election campaign. And I know what they say, and I know what they do. Do not cast slurs at NFP, its leaders or members of parliament, because first what you should do is look at yourself in the mirror and see who is the real puppet. Because we know it's not NFP. We know who is the real puppet in Parliament. I know. So I think a government should understand that when I return in March, I am not going to condone any form of racism or anyone undermining anybody because of their race. And I want to say that our integrity and unity is intact. We are a team. NFP is a team, not a two-man rule that Fiji First MPs have to bow down to and read scripted diatribe. Now, we walked for a reason. We walked out for a reason. And we stayed out for a reason. And pictures and videos don't lie. My 6-month suspension from Parliament for refusing to bow down to an unfair decision ends in 2 weeks, in 14 days from today, the 6th of March. And I will enter Parliament to reclaim my rightful place and the rightful place of the people who put me inside that house to represent, and display the same vigor, honesty, and integrity along with our leader and the Honourable Ngerengere Tambua to uphold, and to hold government to account and voice the concerns of our people as they struggle with the cost of living, low wages, racial discrimination, and many other problems that are created by this two-man rule. And we know you know, because you feel it in your stomach every day. As the leader said, walkout by the NFP is nothing new. And one must never forget that our founder leader, the Honourable A.D. Patel, and his 9 members team had walked out of the Legislative Council in 1967, stayed out and forced a by-election a year later. Fiji would not have got independence in 1970 under a just and a fair constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Pio Tikununua. I invite any questions now before we finish and go on to the refreshments. Yeah.
Just a question. This protest that NFP is undertaking in this sitting, the sitting has finished today. Will it carry on to the next sitting in March if the Speaker does not respond to your appeals?
We haven't made any decision on that yet, and we'll let you know when we do.
Hi, I'm Christina from Fiji. So you mentioned on the Speaker leading an independent parliamentary council to advise him leading on his decisions, and you also did mention on the Speaker seeking legal advice from the AG's office.
Yeah.
What does this tell us about the separation of powers between the executive and the legislature, and how does this translate into the kind of democracy that we have here in this country?
That is precisely what the opposition has argued since 2014. We believe that the executive is accountable to the legislature, accountable to the parliament. And therefore, the parliament must have its own independent legal counsel, so that the constitutional officers, the Speaker of Parliament, the Secretary General of Parliament, have access to an independent legal advice on any matter relating to the conduct, the process, the procedures of Parliament. Not advice from the Solicitor General's office, which comes under the Attorney General's office, and the Attorney General is the minister responsible for Parliament. We have called for independent legal counsel since 2014. And we call on the Speaker and the Secretary General to ensure that there is an independent parliamentary counsel for them at all times.
Will you be making any correspondence in the coming days in regards to your motions?
As I said, we have not received any response from the Speaker yet. We still hope that we will, and when we do, we'll let you know. Any other questions? Let me. If you don't have any other question, you have one. Okay.
So I asked this same question to the Leader of Opposition. With a lot of people talking about you're walking out of Parliament, doesn't deserve a pay, doesn't deserve a cent of the taxpayers' money. What is your response to this, sir?
A very good question. For us, let me say this at the outset. For the National Federation Party, it's not about money. We don't care whether we're going to be paid or not. That's the first thing I want to say. We didn't come into politics. I didn't come into politics for money. I left a lot of money when I left my previous job. So for us, it's not about money. But let me also say this. Let me also say this to those who are raising this question, and especially some in the media. Few parliamentary sittings in a year is a small part of a member of parliament's job. We are full-time MPs. There are many other things that we do. We listen to the people regularly. We listen to their concerns. We have hundreds of people coming through to our office. You listen to their problems, listen to their concern, and you try and solve those problems. So for people to say, if you don't go into Parliament, you shouldn't be paid, when walking out of Parliament is a legitimate form of protest, which happens in parliaments all over the world, they need to understand that. But for us, it's not about money. It's a matter of principle. It's a matter of listening to the people. It's a matter of responding to the people's concern and dealing with those. And if that requires us to make our concerns known, make our disappointment known about the process and the procedures of Parliament by a walkout of Parliament, we will do that. And let me also say this. It is not going to stop us from doing it again if we have to. So we are not worried about money. NFP is known for not worrying about money. We opposed the last increase in the allowances for MPs, and the previous term when we were in Parliament, all that money went into our relief account. So for us, it's not about money. It's about principles, it's about procedures, it's about fighting for the people. That's what we are.
Can I just add a few things?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I want to add to what the leader has already said. And I want to affirm this, it is never about money. I had forfeited $25,000 for upholding the integrity of the House and the members of the House and the integrity of the people who voted members of Parliament into the House to represent them. Okay? Now, I was assaulted by the Prime Minister, and this is public knowledge. Okay? And I've been penalized for that. Now, and as I said, I would rather stand with my integrity fighting for the people than taking my 25K. I've been farming for the last 6 months, going to the market for 6 months. It's never about money. I've been doing Parliament work for 6 months, and I have not been allowed into the House, so it's never about money. So whichever media or person is advocating for money, NFP is never for money. Okay, it's never, NFP is another word, eh? It's not for penny. Not for penny, not for money. We have a reason we stayed out, and we want to show the people what true representation of people's aspirations are in the House. We don't worry about our pay. Our leader has lost a lot of money. I have lost a lot of money. It has never been about money. So whoever has been advocating this about money, you can take your money. But we will stay with the people. And we have always stayed for the people. We have stayed with people for half a century. The NFP, it has never been about money. So I think that I hope that is now clear where we stand. Principle and integrity and honesty. And this will always be the things that shape this party going forward. I hope like today the people will realize that. It's not someone who's talking loud in the House like today. No, it's never about that. It's not about asking somebody to sell your story for you. No, it's about simplicity. It's never about money. It will never be about money. Thank you.
One last opportunity for any last question from anyone. If not, and I thank you all. Let me say this. The media is very important. This is why we hold this press conference, and I want to thank all of you for coming over, because it is very important that the media takes the views and opinions of members of parliament and political parties to the people. And we rely on you, and we thank you for coming over and listening to us. Minaka Baklebu.